Is it coming up, Renee?
Here it is.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Renee Sanchez. I'm the Assistant Director for the USF Education Abroad Office. On behalf of USF World, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us despite a blustery weather. Uh, this morning, I am joined by a panel of faculty who have been among USF's earliest adopters of Virtual Global Exchange, or VGE, and in one case, even before it was called VGE and before we had really adopted that process. We're also being joined by two of our international partners who worked with our faculty members. And we'll all have an opportunity to meet each other in just a moment. Before I turn it over to our faculty panel, I wanted to provide a brief description of VGE. Virtual Global Exchange is the process of collaborating with a partner faculty abroad to create an experience for students that allows them to work together across borders, cultures, and time zones, both satisfying course learning objectives as well as creating an opportunity for intercultural engagement. These activities can take many forms, but normally follow the pattern of initial icebreaking activity to allow students to build trust for the coming project, the project or activity jointly designed by the two or more faculty members, and then finally a reflective experience allowing students to examine the nature of the activity, project, or the exchange in general. These enhanced courses have been well received by students and faculty alike. And to discuss how these experiences have impacted them, we've invited some of these early adopters, as I mentioned, and I'll allow them a chance to introduce themselves before we continue on with the conversation. But before introducing our panel, I wanted to allow my colleague Wendy Baker, who also works on the VGE team, to introduce herself.
Yes, thank you, Renee. Hi, I'm Wendy Baker, and I am the campus director for USF World on the St. Petersburg campus. But I also work on university-wide USF projects, and Virtual Global Exchange is one of those projects that I lead with Renee. So welcome to the panel. Thank you for attending today. I'm going to turn it over to Judith Ann to introduce herself and her partner and get us started.
Good morning. Thank you so much for hosting this panel and not being deterred by a hurricane. We can continue. That's one of the beauties of the virtual global exchange is that we're doing this online and we can still have this capability. I'm Judith Ann Scourfield McLaughlin. I am a professor of political science on the USF St. Petersburg campus. I was a Fulbrighter to Moldova in 2010 and 2012 and a Fulbrighter to North Macedonia in 2017. I am thrilled that my partner Larissa Potlis is here with us today. She was my partner when I was and host when I was at ULIM in Chisinau back in 2010, and we have been working together on research and teaching ever since for more than a decade now, and including, for example, a study abroad class that Wendy and the USF World Team helped us coordinate where we got to bring our USF students over to Chisinau. With all due respect, I said, you can go to London or Paris anytime. Let's go to Chisinau and see Moldova. But so we started, I guess my first virtual global exchange was the fall 2011 semester. So also now more than a decade of partnerships like the one that we'll have a chance to talk to you about a little bit later in this program. But I want to thank Larissa. I think this semester or the spring 2022 semester's partnership was even more remarkable, honestly, because we started the day after Russia invaded Ukraine, and that provided a lot of challenges for our students and faculty in Moldova. But we partnered on through the semester, and their resilience was really inspiring for my students for sure. So let me just let Larissa Potlis, my colleague at ULIM, introduce herself as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Vance. Thank you, Wendy, and all the organizers of this wonderful panel. It is a big honor for me to participate in it and to be back virtually to USF. Go Bulls, I'm always happy. So it's been a decade, right? 10 years ago, I visited USF, and it was really great because it is a real collaboration that we're always happy with each other to share our views about. It started with the Fulbright hosting Judith Ann in Moldova, and then continued with the Return Fulbright, and then with Carnegie Scholarship, and a lot of projects and research collaboration that's being on still, so it's not over, and we are never done with our projects, and with this inspiring idea that you, Dan, come always. Yes, and we're really happy to collaborate every time and to produce something new, and to, I don't know, to embrace these provocations of the digital era that we are all facing. And yes, it was really, you know, as you are now facing this challenge of nature-provided disaster, right? And you are in the midst of this nature-provided disaster. The beginning of our last project, which we will be talking about today, was in the midst of the human provoked disaster, as Judith Ann mentioned. So yes, but still, we met this challenge. We did a great project, and we will be happy to speak about it today during this panel. So thank you so much again for inviting.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And yeah, we look forward to hearing more about that project. I know you have a small presentation for us that maybe we can bring up after we've had a chance to have some questions to the panel. I'd like to turn it off next to Dr. Nazek Jawad, our USF faculty member, and so she can introduce herself and her partner from UniNorte in Barranquilla, Colombia.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Nazik Jawad. I'm the Learning and Development Facilitator at the Office of High Impact Practices and Undergraduate Research. I'm also an adjunct professor at the Honors College, the Judy Genschaft Honors College here at USF. And I'm very happy to share with you today the VGE experience that I've had with my faculty partner at UniNorte in Colombia, Dr. Maria Gonzalez. So we're happy to share, how our students benefited from this VGE experience, the challenges we face, and the things that we've learned to overcome these challenges. Maria, I will hand it to you.
Thank you so much, Nasek. I'm really glad to be in this space with all of you right now. It has been a wonderful experience for me. I know that, maybe a lot of people don't know that, but we started when COVID happened, and it was part of our our way to innovate and how to make this experience a little better for students, because they were all, very worried with the situation. So a little about me, I'm an alumni from USF. So I studied my PhD at USF. So I'm, of course, go Bulls forever. And I'm really, really happy to be able to work with my previous university. So yeah, today we want to talk a little bit about our experience during the last almost 3 years that we have been developing VGE together in these two universities. So yeah, real thrilled. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to have you back at USF. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Russell Clayton from the Muma College of Business.
Hey, thanks, Renee. So as he said, Russell Clayton, I'm an assistant professor of instruction in the Muma College of Business, teaching primarily in our MBA program. And amongst this panel of early adopters, I think I may be the most recent adopter. I just began, but I've had the privilege of running about 75 students through 3 different VGEs this semester, and we just wrapped up last week with all of those. And it's been a fantastic experience. So I look forward to sharing a little bit about that, but also to learn from my colleagues here about some of the things that you all have done.
Thank you so much, Russell. So I guess the first question that I'd like to pose to the group in general, but maybe specifically to the USF professors, prior to implementing the VGE, what was the nature of your partnership with your co-faculty? Was this an existing relationship? I know we heard from some that there might have been an existing relationship there prior. Or was this a partnership that you found through USF World? And I guess the follow-up to that would be, how has the nature of the relationship changed, if it was an existing relationship, after implementing a VGE enhanced course? So I'll go ahead and post that to our faculty. Nazek?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. So yeah, as we mentioned earlier, Dr. Gonzalez and I had a friendship prior to our VGE collaboration. I met Maria during the PhD program here at USF at the School of Interdisciplinary Global Studies. So we were both within the same cohort, and she was an international student in the program coming from Colombia, and I had just arrived to Tampa from Syria prior to joining the PhD program. So in a way, we were each other's support system going through the PhD program. And so when the VGE collaboration opportunity came up, it seemed to be a natural development to our academic camaraderie. At that point, she had became a professor at UniNorte and teaching courses about international studies and international organizations. So we took the training together in 2020 through USF World. And we have been offering VGE activities in our classes every semester ever since. So, and then the other part of the question, I think knowing the faculty partner at a personal and academic levels definitely helps throughout the designing and the implementation processes of VGE. So I am very familiar with Maria's research agenda, her academic passions, and that helps when designing a VGE experience. And I think it adds another layer for our friendship, which has evolved due to this collaboration, because we're constantly in touch with each other's work. I'm sorry, this is my cuckoo clock. With each other's work as instructors. So, I think every educator needs that collaborative, experience with other instructors. There are so many instructional moves that I've learned just from working with other faculty, collaborating with them. And this has been the experience with Maria, just creatively thinking together about, designing activity that would help our students deepen their understanding about course content.
All right, and thanks, Nazak. I can jump in next if that's okay. So my first VG partnership back in the spring was with kind of the same situation, but with a colleague in Canada that I had previously conducted research with, and who, quite honestly, our families have become family friends, and done a lot together. So there was that very easy idea. As soon as I learned about VGE from Renee and Wendy in USF World, my first thought was Mark at Brock University. And by the way, Mark wanted to be here, but he's teaching right now on his campus up in Canada. So that was the easy pick for me for my first entry into it. Now this current semester, the 3 VGEs that I have run have all been with 3 different faculty from Coventry University, which is north of London. And that came about through the opportunity with Renee, Wendy, and USF World to actually travel and build partnerships between Coventry and the Muma College of Business. However, the fun thing about it is that my VGE partners, I didn't meet any of them in person. We met a ton of people in person while we were there in Coventry, but it turns out that all 3 of the faculty that I've collaborated with were not those people. So I say that to say to anyone listening in, and you're thinking about, well, who could I connect with? USF World really is an asset there to help you get connected, and that's exactly what they did for me. Although part of mine was literally going across the pond and meeting folks, still all of the work with the faculty that I ended up collaborating with happened just like this, virtually. Sort of not a cold call, but just one level above a cold call. So that has been my experience. And I should say the second part of that question, going forward with Mark up in Canada, that's easy. He's always up for anything that improves the teaching and learning in our courses. So I see that as a long-term partnership. And I also see at least 2 of the 3 Coventry faculty members that I've worked with, if not all 3, cycling that back through for the spring and the following fall. And I have calls set up with them next week to sort of debrief and figure out what went well and what do we want to fix.
As I had mentioned in my intro, I've been incorporating something like a VGE for more than 10 years now. So I've had partners in Moldova, North Macedonia, in the UAE, Romania. So some of my partners were my host institutions, where I was teaching, like Ulin with Larissa, University of Tetovo, Southeast European University. But other contacts came about. One contact with a semester-long project came from a faculty member I met at an international conference. Another one came out of I was a guest speaker for the League of Women Voters here in St. Petersburg, and met someone who did a lot of work, charitable work with orphanages in Romania, but she knew this faculty member and we connected. And I actually had offered to host him at USF as a Fulbright scholar for his application, which was not successful, but we did work together, my students and his students, for a semester with the Institute for Political Science in Bucharest. And the UAE connection was through ACYPL. I was a delegate for a Middle East peace exchange. And so you never know when you can make these connections yourself, when you're doing your regular professional things that you do at conferences. And so to always kind of be thinking and be open to, when you're meeting someone who's doing something similar, be able to reach out and connect. And then, yes, of course, USF World now has a wealth of resources and contacts. And as Russell said, sometimes even a cold call, folks are really eager to engage with us. And so for those listening, I guess I would say contacts can come from a variety of areas, and professional opportunities. And to, it might be fits and starts, and you might need to kind of think about what classes, and when you're teaching those classes and when they're teaching the classes, and what project might make most sense for your learning outcomes and their learning outcomes. And so it might take some time to kind of find that right fit, but I'm sure that you will.
Great, thank you so much for that information. And it's true, again, you can be building off of your existing networks, or if you are looking for partnership, USF World does have networks of contacts that we can link our faculty with. I'd like to sort of turn the mic over to our partners from overseas and hear a little bit about what that process was like for you, and what the impact of the VGE has been for you on your respective campuses. Maria?
Sure. So I think that it had been a really interesting impact. First of all, for my professional career, because in the university, they identify me as someone that is doing an innovative internationalization process, right? And actually, they gave me an award in 2020 for innovative pedagogical practices in challenging times, because of course we were in a pandemic. And additionally to that, so the university started recognizing me as someone that is, having an agenda for internationalization. Additionally, I'm also kind of like diving in other VGEs with other universities in United States. So I have new partners. Thanks to this first experience with MAS, I feel more comfortable, going to other universities and having these other processes. So it had been really great for me as a professional, like in my professional life. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Larissa, would you like to talk a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, sure. So this project is actually a part of what we at the Free International University of Moldova call globalization of curriculum. And we really promote this kind of education in 21st century. And being as a child of reforms, as we bravely call ourselves, because our university is almost as young as our country. This year we celebrated our 30th anniversary, and our country is 31 years old, let's say. And we try to implement all of the innovative ideas and all of what digital era brings to us. And as to compare this project that we've implemented with JudyTan to the project back in 2012, which was also like something striking, like something very innovative, when we used Skype for video conferences, and when no one actually was using that kind of conferencing at that time, like 10 years ago. And now after the pandemic, this crashed everything and all the ideas and comprehension of what is a collaboration in the digital era. So we've been like pioneers in that way in our country, doing these Skype conferences, and now having all kind of communication platforms and providing these high-level research opportunities for students. We definitely built bridges, and that was our banner of the course that we've elaborated back in 2012, and that we've improved for this course as well. So it was building bridges, and definitely for me, it is developing in my new status, which is now covering all the university as being the director for the library of the university, which gives the opportunity to involve more students, not from a particular faculty, but to cover all faculties, and probably to get involved more students from more programs which we have at the university in future, like to develop this kind of collaboration project that we've implemented with JudyTan. But this is for certain, it was an innovative way of bringing research, and we will speak in our presentation also about that, of teaching our students to develop research posters, which is also innovative in way for our students, because we had mostly traditional research communications and presentations for the conferences, and this year they started research posters presentations that they elaborated together with their peers from the USF. And that was also an interesting experience for our students, that they've learned from also the materials provided by Nelson Memorial, Poynter Memorial Library, and that, yes, was really, really a great, and for us, that we really adapt of this globalizing curricula in Moldova. It is enormous achievement, I would say, this implementing this project. So we are really grateful to have this collaboration with USF, and namely with Dr. McLaughlin.
Amazing, amazing. I love hearing the impact that it's had for you on your campuses. This wasn't maybe a question that we had prepared, but I'm sort of curious to hear from Russell, Nazek, or Judith Ann. Has there been an impact of your participating in a VGE, an impact on your professional career here at USF, or maybe different connections you've even made on campus as a result of your participation? Yeah.
I can go. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm always interested in different ways to globalize, courses. So working with faculty and brainstorming ideas for different BGE activities, that fits the course content or both course contents. It's been very rewarding and enriching, but also it's a great entry point for collaboration, right? So looking for partnerships in other institutions, it's a great entry point. You see someone in different institution internationally working on research or teaching courses where there is overlap with courses you're teaching, and that's a great entry point. You can just send an email and say, I'm interested in, exploring this opportunity together. It could lead to research collaboration, enhancing instructional toolbox. I mean, the possibilities are wide and varied.
Yeah, I would say definitely there's been a benefit in that aspect. Within my college, there's been a couple of folks in the dean's office who really want to see BGE take a hold in the Muma College of Business, and so that has gosh, I don't know how to say it, but other than earned me bonus points. That's probably the best way to say it. A pat on the back for championing a strategic issue that the college wants to tackle. But beyond that, beyond sort of the feather in the cap, it has with my Canadian friend and faculty member, it's done nothing but strengthen that relationship. And with the English faculty members at Coventry, I'm forming new relationships. We're already talking about how to make the VGEs better. Do we want to try to collect data and write this up in in business? We have several teaching related journals. So we're looking at trying to write something up for that to see what kind of outcomes we have. And then, professionally, just as a teacher, it's been kind of cool because a couple of students have caught me after class and said, wow, I really enjoyed this. This was the best part of the class, or the funnest part of the class, what have you. And so to me, quite honestly, that just makes me feel good as a teacher that I did something right for the class. So I would say it's had multiple benefits for me, Renee.
Yes, I underscore how gratifying it is for the student, to see the students learning. And as you'll see with our presentation later, Facebook is actually one of the platforms that we use. We created a Facebook group for our class because, of course, we can't have the international students in our Canvas LMS, so we use that for sharing documents and photos and announcements. But also, I know from these projects over the years that our student collaborators were able to continue their relationship and their friendship with their colleagues overseas. And I love seeing that, because that's another one of the side benefits of the learning and the research that they conducted during that semester, but being able to continue that international partnership and having friends that they've made through this project is also nice to see. As far as professionalism, professional development, yes, I've authored a number of articles related, in SOTL type research. We do have pre-test, post-test survey data for each of these semesters, as well as the Center for Civic Engagement on the St. Pete campus. We also conduct anonymous student surveys. And so we have that CCE data as well for our classes, along with the regular end of course evaluations as well. And the number of the students, even though there's not a specific question about VGE in the course evaluations, it is a major part of the class, and students tend to write about that and their experience with that and how much they appreciated that in those anonymous surveys as well. So those 3 data points of surveys, as well as some of the reflection pieces, their writing, and other like post interviews that we were able to do with the students about the impact that the project had on their learning. We're including the write-up. So actually, Larissa and I right now are working on an article to submit, which we hope to get in by the end of the year. It's already November 10th, but it is in progress.
I love hearing all of those wonderful benefits, especially that gratification that you see in your students from having that interaction and that shrinking of psychological distance, where they may not have been thinking that they'd be interacting with someone from Colombia or the UK or Moldova, and here it's part of their course. Jody, I see you have a question.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Judith Ann, good to see you. So I'm in Paris now, and I didn't know about VGE, but I've been doing a lot of international exchange stuff with my students for a number of years. But one thing you just said brought up a question for me. So just today I was at the American Library in Paris and asked them to do a guest lecture for one of my courses in the spring on what they did during World War I and World War II to help servicemen have books and stuff. And so they're quite interested in doing that. But will they be able to use Canvas, or am I going to have to find another platform?
You can, in my class, oh, I'm sorry. So now, I used to love the Blackboard Collaborate Ulta. We can't use that anymore. So now, but if you have MS Teams in your class, you can, so now I continue to have MS Teams even when it's not hybrid, and I record the class mostly as a response to that state statute, which we could talk about separately. But in any case, that way I have a record of everything that I've said in my class, in case anything is controversial. But so there's the full context. But in any case, so I would recommend having the MS Teams in your Canvas class, and then that link you can share with your partner, and then it can all be in Teams, and then you could also record it. So I also have a library as a module. So these times that I've had, like, so this special guest speaker sounds amazing. When you record that session, then you can take that recording, and then in other Canvas classes that you're teaching, you can have like these past lectures as a library, which is nice.
Thanks. Okay, great. So I can use Canvas. Great. Thank you.
You can't have students, you can't add those students to your Canvas course so that they're all using Canvas to like see your modules or take a quiz or any of that. So that's how, sometimes I have some colleagues who use the Google Classroom feature, but we've been successful with using like Facebook as a group where we can all communicate together, and then we have our live lessons through Teams and sharing the Teams link.
So I want to leave plenty of time for additional questions and also for the presentation that you have. So I think I might wrap up my emceeing portion of the panel, sort of with a joint question that was sort of on my mind. While you were designing the VGE and while you were implementing the VGE, what were some of the difficulties or obstacles that you encountered in that process, and how did you overcome them? And then finally, any words of wisdom for other faculty? I'll let you think about the words of wisdom. Maybe we'll do that right after the presentation. But were there any challenges, and how did you overcome them?
I can go. I think that first difficulty we faced is deciding what parts of our courses lend themselves to global exchange. So how would a global exchange activity deepen our students' learning and understanding about the content provided in both courses? Which are very different each semester. So Maria teaches courses about international organization and international relations, and I teach courses pertaining to the region of the Middle East. And it varies every semester. So one semester it could be about women in the Middle East, other semester it could be about global challenges facing the region. So this is the first challenge we had, and but it's an exciting challenge. So the great aspect about VGE is that provides engaged learning and deepen learning of course content that otherwise might remain theoretical and abstract. So we overcome this challenge just by having lengthy conversations about what works for my class, what works for her class, and then basically identifying the overlaps in terms of course contents and what we're teaching, and then finding this activity where students are learning more about the role of international organizations, for example, in the region of the Middle East. So both our students are benefiting in that sense. And we've had students work on amazing projects looking at the role of international organizations in advancing the agenda for women in the Middle East and identifying challenges, and then coming up with creative projects to assist the work of these international organizations. And we've had students, create TikToks or podcasts where they've met together with their international peers from Colombia and they discussed issues pertaining to women in the Middle East and the role of international organizations. And they were very creative, and they identified these challenges within the umbrella of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So it was really great to see how each group engaged with these activities and what they make up from them, right? Um, I think the other challenge is the time difference. So, we have synchronous activities and asynchronous activities, and given the time zone difference, each semester we had to come up with different plans. So, certain semesters we were able to have synchronous meetings during class time and have both our classes meet and do icebreaking activities, which helped our students learn about their team members and, be exposed to their cultures. Um, as far as wisdom, I suggest utilizing backward design method for designing the VGE activity. So start with the learning outcomes and then design the activity that aligns with these outcomes. Go over the details, have a timeline to complete the designing process and a clear task list for you and your partner. Consider time difference, consider evidence that you need to be submitted by your students, grading, so it's equal. And be prepared to maneuver, so have plan A, plan B, and plan C ready. But honestly, I encourage, every faculty to explore incorporating VGE activity in their courses. It's a great opportunity for students to travel the world without traveling, to experience cultures outside of their own, from the comfort of their home. A lot of students are apprehensive about study abroad experiences, or, they worry to be burdened with the travel costs. So VGE is equitable learning tool and accessible. So I encourage everyone to incorporate this fantastic tool, and I'll leave it to Maria to share the other challenges that we faced.
Yes, another important challenge that we face, at least from our side, is language, right? We speak Spanish in Colombia, and my students, the main language is Spanish. So even though my students are from international relations and they have a good level of English, I cannot assume that all of them have the great level of English, right? So what that was a big challenge for us, because we needed to do the class in English. At least, again, in my case, as I have IELTS students, it was a little easier. Nevertheless, what I did in order, or what we planned in order to have like a balance in language, was that I did like a poll at the beginning of the semester with my student, asking them the level of English, right? If what was their level, how they felt in speaking, writing, right? All this different aspect of language. And according to what I have in that poll, I mixed the groups, right? I made the groups. So those that have a really good levels of English with those that maybe they are a little weak. So in this way, they can go to the meetings with USF students a little balance, right? Maybe one is lost, maybe the other one could speak in Spanish. Hey, we're talking about this and this, right? Or this is what we're doing, right? Or this, maybe one student didn't know the word and the other one could help out. This is the word that she or he is trying to say, right? So we go around that way. Additionally to that, right now I asked the dean for having English instructors that could help my students during the process. So they're going to have like a special tutoring with English instructors as well. And that's kind of like a new thing. We're going to start that next semester because my dean has seen how great is this experience and how it encouraged bilingualism in our program. So that was an interesting challenge, and it still is an interesting challenge. I mean, it's something that is, we're going to confront this every semester, right? But you just navigate through it, right? And there are another interesting challenges is that at the beginning when we start our VGE experience, we didn't have a really good experience with Canvas, at least in my part, because my student needed to they needed to have a USF email in order to access Canvas, right? And that was really complicated with IT sometimes. So we needed to kind of like find a way, right? Like a middle ground, a platform that will be a middle ground. So we have like we try different things, right? But right now, what we do is that we have, NASEC has in a Canvas model all the things about BGE and experience, and I have in one of my Blackboard models all about the BGE, and we give students some guidance about what platform they could use to communicate, and we give them the freedom to choose what platform they would like to communicate, right? So we have been developing this. Also, we have Google Drive as well, trying to work through Google Drive. So it has been a little challenge, but I think that we're getting to the middle ground, right? But yeah, those could be one of the two challenges that I have in my head. And a word of wisdom that I could think of for other faculty is to try to plan beforehand. And even if you plan, it could fail. So you need also to be flexible. For instance, with NASEC, we have a plan and schedule about when we're going to do when the students have to do the activities, when they have to submit everything. But then there was a hurricane in Florida, so we have to move 2 weeks from our schedule. So everything was a little complicated, but hey, you have to be flexible. Things happen. Like plan ahead, but be flexible because things can happen, and in this world is changing every minute. But yeah, try to plan, but be flexible.
Thank you. Russell?
Yeah, I don't know that my challenges are that much different than Nazek and Maria's challenges, but I think they're worth reiterating. The time zone difference with our UK colleagues, that was a challenge, and that was compounded by my particular classes being, for the most part, being evening classes because they're MBAs, they're working adults. So the fix for that was that for synchronous activities, we tried to plan them at lunch, which so that they could take their lunch time from work. That was roughly 5 o'clock in England. And then I would sort of reimburse them the time later on in the semester through knocking off an hour of class, perhaps, something like that. And so that made it equitable, I feel like, for them. And then I think the biggie that, again, that both Nazek and Maria mentioned is flexibility. We had the same thing with Hurricane Ian. We had a huge thing planned for noon the day that Ian made landfall, and the university had canceled class, so we had to cancel that. And unfortunately, that little portion didn't get rescheduled, but we still managed to get all the rest of the BGE in. And then also, I think flexibility and expectation, being on the same wavelength with your faculty partner. Both I had two of my faculty partners in the UK, and I'm not sure what the underlying cause of this was, but sort of at the last minute they both wanted to adjust the time of our synchronous meetings by about an hour and a half. And that seems minor, but it was a pretty big, it's a pretty big thing to ask 35 of my students, hey, we were going to be online at noon. Now you need to be online at 1:30. And so maybe up front, I needed to set the expectation more of, hey, if this is the time we select, this is the time that we select, and we can't deviate from that because, they I guess culturally here we're pretty strict on time, right? So, and then also expectation wise, one of my faculty members that I worked with, I guess we weren't on the same page, and they kind of made their BGE stuff 100% optional. And whereas the other two faculty members in the UK had made it required and gradable. And so in that particular class, my students had a really tough time getting the British students on Teams or on Zoom, whatever they chose to use. And unfortunately, and several of the cases, it ended up being just my USF students chatting on Teams with each other for some of the synchronous sessions. It really was because there was no incentive for the British students. And again, I'll put some of that on me because up front I didn't, make that clear, or I just assumed, and we know what happens when we assume. So I think that's very similar challenges, but I would say with all of that pales in comparison to all the things that we all mentioned up front, of all the positives that come out of VGE. Those things were minor compared to, I think, all the benefits that came out of it.
Thanks so
Great.
much, Russell.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was going to say thank you, Russell. And I just wanted to say, I know Judith Ann has a presentation that she wanted to share, but I also wanted to thank Russell. I know he has a tight time frame for going to another meeting. So thank you very much for your time today. And then Judith Ann, did you want to share your screen?
Yes, I will share my screen in just a second, but if I could just also respond to this last question quickly. Yeah, the first couple of years that I was doing this, we were lucky in that we were an undergrad class partnering with a grad class. So our daytime undergrad class matched up with their evening grad class. So yeah, you depending on where your partner is, you may have to figure out how to make the times line up. Uh, Obviously, when we were a partner with Abu Dhabi, it just was the middle of the day for us, was the middle of the night for them. And we were just very grateful that folks were willing to get on a call at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, their time. I also, if you have a chance of what semester to do your project, spring is a great semester because I love giving my students the chance to integrate the undergraduate research symposium within the class. So I just wanted to tag on to Russell's comment about whether the assignment is required or optional, and I've done it both ways. We've always had good response, even when it's optional overseas, because of the intangible benefits that those students have. We present them with certificates when they participate in our undergraduate research symposium. Sometimes, like in the case of Uline, they have an undergraduate research symposium. They have a journal. So we've been able to have our students' research published in the journals of those universities that we've partnered with. And so there have been other ways, in addition to a grade in a class, that are probably more useful to those students in terms of things that they can put on their resume, conference presentations, publications, etc. But back to our end, our students are very concerned about their grades. And prior to the VGE experience, the truth is I didn't really have many group projects in my classes. It's probably different for you, Russell, in business. I know they do a lot more group work, but in my discipline, it was less common. And, so if students are in a group with students at USF, there's going to be anxiety about their grade. And if everyone's pulling their weight and is it one person who's doing all the work for the grade or what have you. So when you put another country, another time zone, another person with different, expectations, it's just going to magnify that. So over the years, I've kind of adapted these various assignments so let's say it's 20 to 25% of my students' grade at USF. I have sort of a number of different facets of that assignment, some of which are 100% under the control of that individual student, getting the badge, the credential that they learned how to do a research poster, doing, so there's a number of facets of it that they feel like they can control and show the work that they did, the research that they conducted, what they learned from the project, as well as, yes, you are going to have a group project where you're doing this poster and conducting research and working with your colleagues overseas. But I've tried to reduce the anxiety somewhat by giving my students a sense of control over, they won't be dependent on someone else for their grade, while at the same time continuing the group project, if that makes sense. So I have made those adaptations. I guess, okay, so why don't I share the screen real quick. I see we're running close on time. Let me see if I share my screen or window. Right, here's the screen. Okay. And Larissa created this wonderful presentation. So I don't know, I can't see you now. I can only see my screen. Larissa, if you want to jump in as well. I think what we'll do is offer to share this with Wendy, and then any participants who are interested in seeing this and discussing with us later, we would be happy to do that. But I guess I just want to say quickly, so I specialize in U.S. constitutional law and judicial process and teach courses in American government and politics. So you might be wondering, how is VGE relevant to this, to my focus on U.S. politics? But I have to say, particularly, this is U.S. constitutional law too, civil rights and civil liberties. And this project that gives students the opportunity to compare and contrast decisions of the U.S. Supreme Court and the European Court of Human Rights on similar legal questions, comparing and contrasting provisions of our Bill of Rights with the European Convention on Human Rights, has really expanded what my students take away as far as how does the Supreme Court work in those core questions by having that lens and that comparative frame. So again, we're now short on time, but this is some of the platforms that we talked about. We do have a blog. I should have mentioned that as well, that we could share with you. We use Teams. A lot of our students like to use WhatsApp for communicating with each other. Nobody likes email. I guess it's like the mail of today. So so students either through group chats, WhatsApp, we give it, we let them decide what's the best way for them to communicate. We formed our research groups based on their interests and what they wanted to study. And these are the research posters. And the students actually had several opportunities. We build it in so they can, of course, participate in the USF conference, also the ULEAM conference. This semester, my students were also able to participate along with, as you can see in the picture, our colleagues from Moldova at the Florida Political Science Association convention. And then they also did a research showcase at the U.S. Embassy. Hold on, we're coming to the U.S. Embassy. Oh, they were on TV as well, discussing their exchange. And we could share that link with you as well. Here's the one at the U.S. Embassy to showcase research. So I went through, let me see if I can come, right, hold on a minute. How do I get back to stop sharing? You'd think I'm like an expert at Teams after like 2 years of the pandemic. But Larissa, I just kind of breezed through that really fast.
Yeah, there was an arrow to the left. You could use that, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that. And yeah, please do share that. And I'd love to make that available to the faculty that have joined us today. In the last few minutes that we have, I'd love to open it to the floor to questions. And I can also share sort of the website to where to go to get more information on the VGE project at USF, where to get the free self-paced training, as well as just a quick, excellent 1-minute video explaining what VGE is. So I can go ahead and open up to the floor. And while I do that, I'll go ahead and share my screen with the USF link. So here is the USF World's main page. And to go from there, you'll go to Global Classroom Initiative. We have several of them, but Virtual Global Exchange is right there where student and faculty success meet. You can watch a brief 1-minute video that we have describing VGE, or share this link with colleagues, with your chairs, with your department, so that they sort of understand what it is that you're looking to do, as well as a direct link to register for our self-paced Canvas workshop. And we're happy to work with IT to get logins for your overseas faculty partners so that you can do that together if you'd like. But I'd like to go ahead and open the floor for questions.
I would
All
like
right.
just to add one takeaway, like overarching, bird view kind of like takeaway. from this experience. I'm just appreciative that this experience has helped my students see the commonality in the human experience, which is really very important, you know, for any educator, especially teaching courses about region that is foreign to them. You know, there isn't a museum in Tampa that I can take them to learn about the Middle East. It's a different language, different culture. So I'm very appreciative that through this interaction, both my students and Maria's students are able to see the commonality in the human experiences, that women's struggles are the same, you know, patriarchy is universal. So they're able to see that by visiting course content from different lens and different perspectives. So I'm grateful for that.
If I can just add something, I agree with you, Nazik. Good to see you. And additionally, one of the assignments that I have my students do is through Natakalam, where they speak with refugees who live anywhere in the world. And they come to see the mythology of the media and political bias about refugees, and the difference of their lives and the privilege that they have in their lives. So in that case, it's kind of different, but incredibly important.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely. Because as they're learning about the other, they're reflecting and learning about themselves too. So they're learning about different culture, but in that sense, they're learning about their own culture, about their own self, and there's always this reflective activity that is happening.
Well, I'd like to take this moment to thank our panel. Thank you so much for making time in your day to come and share your experience of the Virtual Global Exchange at USF. And to our partners from overseas, thank you for joining us late into your evening or afternoon. So thank you so much for joining us for this. And thank you to all those who attended today. And if you're watching this online, thank you for clicking on the link.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.